In the 2000s, there was a rapper who simply dominated the world. His name was Nelly. No matter what I do, this is what I think. While hip-hop was still fighting for space, he was already at the top of the charts on the radio and even at the Super Bowl. But what seemed like a perfect career was hiding losses, controversies, and decisions that would change everything. This, guys, is the story of Nelly, one of the biggest phenomena rap has ever seen and also one of the most mysterious disappearances in the industry and even in the rap scene. Wait, did I say rap? No, let me explain this properly. But first, what's up? Action crew in the house, listen up. If you're not subscribed to this channel yet, man, now's the time. Subscribe, leave a like, and turn on notifications. The t-shirt store link is in the description, along with Nelly related and other products shown in the video. Any purchase helps the channel. Thank you. Cornell Irao Errol Haynes Jr. was born on November 2nd, 1974. So, the man is 51 years old today and he's from Austin, Texas. Only son of Cornell Haynes and Honda Mack, with some half-siblings out there who are actually relatively important to the story, and as we go along, you'll understand why. But it's important for you to know that in his teenage years, Nelly moved with his mother from Austin, Texas to the suburbs of St. Louis, Missouri. There, he began making connections and formed a more professional relationship with rap. While he was in high school, Nelly formed the St. Lunatics with his friends Murphy Lee, Kid One, Slow Down, and his half-brother City Spud. Well, I know there'll be some confusion in the comments with people saying City Spud isn't Nelly's half-brother but just a friend. I understand that this story is really confusing, but from everything I remember and everything I researched, many sources said that he was indeed one of Nelly's half-brothers. But I don't think this will interfere with the story at all, so let's calm down and pay attention. The group achieved moderate local popularity with the single Gimme What I Got in 1996. But guys, here we have a geographic breakdown of rap to cover, so pay attention to the lesson, sit down, because here comes the story. At the end of the 90s, rap was very well known. As you know, we've talked about it several times here on the channel, right? Because of East Coast and West Coast rap. But there was also rap from the Midwest, that is rap from the American Midwest. It was considered the underdog of the rap scene. While New York and Los Angeles dominated the narrative, cities like St. Louis, Chicago, Detroit, and Cleveland created their own identity that mixed the rawness of the streets with a very strong musicality. Of all the characteristics I can mention about Midwest rap, I think a great example we can talk about is that they prioritized melody above everything else. Unlike the dense sound of New York rap, Midwest rap in the United States leaned toward a more sung melodic style. For example, St. Lunatics themselves. They kinda didn't need an R&B singer to do the chorus of their songs, they did it themselves. More specifically, Nelly himself already did that more sung part, more of the chorus, the part that stuck in people's heads, you know? And that really pleased the local radio stations. Just to give an example of rappers who came from that area and who are actually very famous today, some of the biggest standouts are Eminem, Twista, Kanye West, Common, Ludacris, and the group Bone Thugs and Harmony. And notice that all these people I mentioned have a musical quality that comes along with the rhyming, you know? And honestly, it goes way beyond that. You can clearly remember the chorus of any song by Common, Kanye West, or Eminem because they really have that catchy hook. But going back to talking about St. Lunatics, that was it, right? The group was big, everyone had a role there, but Nelly stood out. He was the one the fans gradually came to like the most in the group. Over time, he had more parts in the songs because he was the one people really wanted to listen to. And everyone, including Nelly and the other members of the group, started to realize that the rapper was going to have a solo career. But unlike many groups where a member decides to leave because of ego or other reasons, in Sam Lunatics, it was a collective decision. They formed the group in '93 and for years tried to get a record deal as a group, but without any success. And nobody in New York or Los Angeles was interested in the group as a whole. So man, the strategy changed. Nelly was the most outgoing, the most charismatic, the one who participated the most. The member needed to start a solo career first, then bring the group along, essentially opening the door for Sam Lunatics so they could later succeed together. So you can see how those guys were already sure that Nelly was so awesome that he was going to make it big, right? Anyway, it happened, but it didn't go the way they were planning. In 1999, Nelly signed with the record label Universal Music. Through the label, he released his first single, Country Grammar, Hot Shit, Bye. I don't even need to say how much of a hit Country Grammar was. It was a worldwide sensation. The guy's first single already broke through all possible barriers in rap and music. It played in Brazil and so on, using Nelly's most striking feature and biggest difference at that time, which was his country accent universal. The guy really took advantage of that and used it in this marketing strategy to promote Country Grammar, which in my mind would be something like country grammar or country dialect or country slang. Something like that. Even though the record label executives hated this song exactly because it was so different, right? The public loved it and it reached number 7 on the Hot 100 and also on the UK singles chart. Nelly then became one of the biggest stars on the planet, for real, creating a huge gap between him and the other members of the Lunatics. In other words, people's interest in Nelly got bigger and like it wasn't all that appealing anymore to push Lunatics, which would make things worse because the rapper got the green light from Universal to start working on his debut album, also called Country Grammar, which reached number 3 on the Billboard 200. But shortly before Nelly's album came out, Cyrus Fuzz, one of the members of Lunatics, was arrested. That made Nelly, deep in his heart, feel an even greater need to succeed so he could support the group and cover lawyer fees. Besides helping Cyrus Spud's family, right? The rest of his family, and probably his own family too, and also the members who stayed in the group and were depending on Nelly's success so they could build their own careers. But even so, they invested in Lunatics, and the group's first album called Free City, released in 2001, was given that name as a tribute to Cyrus Fuzz, who was in prison. But then, man, in 2001, Nelly was already huge worldwide, and the group was kind of taking a back seat, and like nobody really cared about the Lunatics group. They just wanted to know about Nelly. So this whole thing, including Cyrus Fuzz's arrest, ended up being overshadowed by the hype Nelly had in the early 2000s. But like what happened wasn't really a fight, it was more like a commercial imbalance, let's put it that way. First because of the image, right? Since the record labels and TV shows wanted Nelly, he was the guy with the bandages on his face, the sportswear, and the sex appeal for the female audience. After that, it was the sound that Nelly made, right? The audience wanted the melodic hits that only he could make. When the Lunatics released something more focused on street rap, it didn't sell as much. But that took a toll on Nelly by overloading him, right? At that time, he was dealing with his own success with his group having to do a lot of things at the same time. On June 25, 2002, Nelly released his album Nellyville. And here Nelly stops being just a successful rapper to show that he's a guy who's really out of the ordinary. Because if in Country Grammar he showed the rap from St. Louis, here man in Nellyville he was ready for global impact straight up. The album debuted straight at number 1 on the Billboard 200, and few people have had a year as dominant in music as Nelly did in 2002. He achieved a very rare feat with this album, which was having the number 1 and number 2 songs on the Billboard Hot 100 simultaneously. Now get ready for some nostalgia, because the song that was number 1 at that time was simply Hot in Here or Hot in Here. Produced by the Neptunes, Hot in Here became a global hit, a real party anthem, a true dance floor banger, and at the same time a very urban track straight from the streets. And the track won the Grammy for Best Male Rap Solo Performance in 2003. Song number 2 was Dilemma. The collaboration with Kelly Rowland, who at the time was in Destiny's Child, kind of proved that rap and R&B had a really strong appeal on the radio. And it could become a perfect combination for pop success, let's put it that way, and long lasting, right? Because even today, Dilemma is still out there. Wait, hold on, but I have to say that Dilemma wasn't supposed to be one of the singles from Nellyville, right? That's because when Nelly basically released the album, I think the album also leaked, I'm not sure about that, but man, the song Dilemma started growing organically because people were requesting that song on the radio even before it was ever meant to be released. People requested it on the radio, it gradually climbed the Hot 100, and Nelly said, I think I have a hit, so I'll take advantage of it. To be able to release this song, and who knows, maybe it would become a hit, and the rest is history. But the Nellyville album wasn't made with just those 2 tracks. We still have Pimp Juice, Work, which featured Justin Timberlake, Air Force One's Calendar. I think that the whole thing with the bandages on Nelly's face became not just a trademark, right? But a big myth, a big legend. Because everyone used those little bandages on their face back then. Kids wore them without even knowing what was going on. Actually, to demystify this, it was a kind of tribute to City Spud. Nelly has mentioned this a few times, but I think people still don't get it. And it was Nellyville, the album that solidified Nelly's ability to move between worlds musically speaking. R&B, straight up rap, pop, everything that came Nelly's way, he was singing. I even forgot about the track Shake Your Tail Feather, which was a collaboration between Nelly, Diddy, and Murph Lee, which was on the Bad Boys 2 soundtrack, and I know a lot of people have fond memories of it. It was during this era that he launched Apple Bottoms, his women's jeans line that was immortalized in his song lyrics, and also the energy drink Pimp Juice. He was teaching how to turn global hits into multi-million-dollar businesses, something that many rappers, other artists, and even influencers repeat nowadays. In February 2004, Nelly took part in Super Bowl 38, yes, the one that had the incident with Janet Jackson. Being on that stage was proof that Nelly was one of America's favorites at that time. He was the kind of rapper people accepted singing on afternoon TV shows. He was the rapper who came into their homes. I'm saying this because, as you know, at that time, the rappers who were popular were 50 Cent, Eminem, Jay-Z, who had heavier lyrics and were completely different from what Nelly was doing back then. So rap faced a lot of prejudice, especially from the traditional American family who forbade their kids from listening to anything with violent or heavy lyrics. Nelly went against that. Nelly was the guy people accepted. This detail is very important because it was decisive for the next album that Nelly was going to release, which had a completely different concept. Wait, did I say one concept? No, actually there are two. In September 2004, Nelly did something that few rappers could do at the peak of their careers. To release simultaneously on the same day and at the same time 2 studio albums, and they were Sweat and Suit. No, you don't get it. He didn't release a double album. He released 2 real albums with 2 completely different concepts. Like Sweat was the street side and the club side. As the name suggests, this album was focused on frantic beats for the dance floors and more aggressive rap. It was on this album that he tried to keep his credibility with the hardcore rap audience, you know? The big hit was obviously Flap Your Wings. But there was also Tilt Your Head Back, which was his feature with Christina Aguilera. And for the pure hip-hop crowd, this album is remembered as a classic and it's really very good, but there was also Sweet, the other side of Nelly. This side was the classier one, the dressed up side and the R&B side. Suit was more sophisticated, more melodic, more romantic. This album was kind of more focused on the female audience, more for the radio. It was Nelly being sweeter, let's put it that way. However, Sweet is very well remembered here in Brazil for tracks like My Place, which played everywhere. Look, this song played on TVZ. Every black music DVD from a street stall had My Place playing. Won't you come on and go with me? Girl. This is one of my sister's favorite songs. She introduced me to My Place. Besides another one that played, I think it was really successful here in Brazil, right? Which was And They Say. However, this is the side with the biggest hit from both albums, and man, it goes completely against everything that Nelly was doing, which is the hit over and over, the super unlikely collaboration with the country star Tim McRae, and then... Man, at the time, this collaboration between Nelly and Tim McRae was seen as crazy. How could rap and country come together to create a hit? That doesn't exist. Well, the result is that the song was a huge success, proving that Nelly wasn't afraid to risk his rapper image for the sake of a good melody. With all that, Nelly broke another record, becoming the first male artist to have both the #1 and #2 albums on the Billboard 200. And then, man, in 2005, he even re-released this album called Sweatsuit. It's kind of hard to say, you know, because we speak Portuguese, right? By the way, that album, that re-release, brought another hit, which was the song Girl. In 2005, Nelly was competing with himself. He knew there was no one else there who could match what he was doing. He had no one to compete with. He didn't fit into any one musical genre. He was basically a global brand. And because of that, the hardcore rap crowd started saying what? That he was selling out. By trying to please everyone, the rap fans in Sweet Sweet Suit and the grandmas who like country in Sweet Suit, he started to lose that unique identity he had in country. Grammar. A lot of fans were already associating Nelly with the idea of being a celebrity, not the well-known rapper who came from St. Louis. Well, after that big effort of making 2 albums simultaneously and working on them at the same time, Nelly then took a break from his career, focusing on personal projects and some problems that happened in his personal life, which we'll talk about soon. When he finally announced his next album called Brass Knucks, which would come out in 2008, things were different. Nelly kind of tried to show with this album that he remained connected to the streets, which is why it's called Brass Knuckles. But people already saw him as a country bumpkin coming from the Goiânia scene. And this album had some sound issues. For example, he kept trying to appeal to everyone, and that showed up in the guest features. There was a song produced by Way Wacom, others were produced by Pharrell, others by Jermaine Dupri. Guest appearances were completely random, like Fergie from Black Eyed Peas and even Chuck D. You can see why it was confusing, right? So the result is that he tried to be everything to everyone and the audience didn't like it. The rap crowd thought this album was too clean and the pop crowd thought it was too aggressive, but this album still managed to deliver some bangers. I myself remember songs like Party People, which is that song he did with Fergie, which to me is a classic. And also the song Body on Me, which he did with his future wife Ashanti and with Wacom as well, which to me is another legendary song. But Nelly decided to embrace the style that made him famous even if he didn't want to, which was that slightly more pop vibe. So in 2009, he went back into the studio and released another album called Nelly 5.0. I think the single he bet on the most was the one where he sang the most. Man, he did a lot of rap, but he sang. He said, "I'm going to sing now," and that's how Just a Dream was born, just to buy. Just a Dream blew up. The track was a hit, number 3 on the Hot 100, and it played a lot at that time. I can tell you all with complete confidence that I think it might have been one of Nelly's last successful moments in the 2000s, and now we're not just talking about industry factors, but even personal ones, because that's how it is, right guys? With great hits come great responsibilities, and in Nelly's case, it wouldn't be any different. The first thing I want to talk about, I'll call it the grief that brought Nelly's success to a halt, like Nelly's drama, like the drama, you know, it was kind of ignored and people only focused on the hits, market changes in sound and so on. But he had a very serious personal problem that really shook him at the height of his success, which was his sister Jackie's illness. In 2003, at the height of his fame, Nelly found out that his sister Jackie Donahue had leukemia. He even founded the Jazz Us for Jackie campaign to find donors, but unfortunately in 2005, Jackie passed away, and that's it. It destroyed Nelly emotionally, making him lose much of the shine he had back in the country grammar days. That's why, yeah, in this sweat and suit era, he's much more serious, you know? If you watch the interviews from that time, it's a completely different Nelly. A curious detail is that in 2004, Nelly led these big campaigns to find donors for Spelman College, which is a historically black college for women. But the students didn't really like Nelly being there because they thought that Nelly's lyrics, the songs he sang, were a bit demeaning to them. Especially the song Tip Drill. Remember that song that became really famous because of the scene where a credit card is swiped on a woman's butt? As a result, Nelly refused, the foundation canceled the event, and this sparked a national debate. Like, what was more important? A protest to protect the image of women or saving the life of another woman who needed a bone marrow donor? This early cancellation of his was an example of how Nelly's life was full of contrasts in the sense that he had trouble balancing his life as a rapper, right? The rapper side and the good guy image side, the one who wants to help everyone. Well, the second point I wanted to bring up here is about marketing that became a meme even before the word meme existed. Straight talk, what was cool, what was awesome, what was stylish in 2002 became kind of cringe in 2008. For example, vocal clothes, apple bottoms, jeans, they all became outdated. Rap fashion changed really fast in the 2000s and went to that kind of slim fit vibe, combined with the European luxury that was really spread by Kanye West and Jay-Z. But in the middle of all that, Nelly kept wearing the outfits he used in 2002. And another thing that also became kind of outdated is that I remember that around the end of the 2000s, the song Dilemma started to gain popularity again. People then mocked it for the outdated elements in the music video, right? Besides their clothes, right? Like Kelly, who wore pants with a really low waist, and Nelly all baggy, you know? There was that thing with Kelly Rowland's cell phone and that XL thing. Man, it was already tacky back then when SMS was blowing up, and MSN too. And the third point is the shift in hip-hop back then. Like, Nelly was the king of melodic rap, but by 2008, the scene was different. It was the era of auto-tune, right? And artists like T-Pain and Lil Wayne dominated the use of melody, but in a robotic and futuristic way. The organic and country style that Nelly used to sing seemed old and outdated. And the other one, I don't even need to tell you, was Atlanta trap, which was starting to get really strong at that time, and the sound of St. Louis was overshadowed by artists like T.I. and Gucci Mane. The aggressive vibe of trap from that area started to overshadow the festive and flashy rap that Nelly used to make in the early 2000s. There's another point I wanted to talk to you about, which is Nelly's financial and legal nightmare, which was widely discussed and even today is rarely talked about in the United States. While the public thought that Nelly was a billionaire because of his businesses and his music, the reality was completely different. He had debts with the IRS, basically the US tax authority. In 2016, the bombshell dropped. Nelly owed about $2.4 million in federal taxes. He was really at risk of losing everything. And I don't know if you remember, but it was around that time that fans started a campaign to massively stream Hot and Harry on digital platforms. That's because streaming that song would help Nelly raise about $400,000 to help him pay off the debt. Around 2017, there were also some criminal accusations involving Nelly. He was arrested on a tour bus after being accused of sexual assault. Although the case was closed because the accuser refused to testify and the parties reached a settlement, the damage to his nice guy pop image was irreversible for the big brands. And the fifth thing that really touched the hearts of rap fans was the breakdown in loyalty with his friends from the St. Lunatics, remember? The rapper Ali, who was like a brother to Nelly, started posting several videos saying that the rapper was an emotional vampire and that he used their talent and cut them off financially when the money dried up. For an artist who was built on the loyalty of his friends, that blow really damaged his image in the scene, and honestly, I can't even tell you if that's been fully fixed to this day, you know? I don't think Nelly lost his strength because of anything he did technically, you know? But a lot of it was because of these things that happened along the way. The world around him changed. The people he loved passed away, and the bills for his luxury lifestyle finally caught up with him. Yeah, the king of St. Louis was now fighting to keep his name out of the courts. Well, but every hero's arc has a redemption story, and in Nelly's case, it was no different. It seems that since 2020, the guy turned things around. And Nelly's comeback was completely different because he didn't try to recover his lost image. He embraced the idea that he was a legend and started building a new legacy from that. Nelly realized that his greatest asset was his versatility. And in 2021, he released the Heartland Project, his first album completely inspired by country music. The single Lil Beat, which featured Florida Georgia Line, was a collaboration proving that if Nelly wanted to go into country music, he would have a place in that genre. He became the first rapper to have an album in the top 10 of Billboard's country charts, solidifying his position as a pioneer of that blend. Look at the song Country Grammar being taken literally to the letter. And I also need to mention the triumphant return of the royal rap and R&B couple of the 2000s, which is Nelly and Ashanti. The biggest emotional moment of recent years was his reconciliation with the singer Ashanti. After 10 years apart and a lot of hurt, they got back together in 2023. They revealed that they secretly got married in 2023. And in 2024, they welcomed their child together. Remember, Nelly already had about 4 children from other relationships. This union brought a wave of positive nostalgia, and it did a lot to clean up the negative image that Nelly's previous legal problems had left behind. And of course, to wrap up, we have to say that today he became a magnate again, but now a resilient magnate. Nelly managed to resolve his federal debts. And he made a lot more money after 2020. He became a major partner of sports betting and fantasy sports platforms, which is a billion-dollar market in the United States, not to mention the sale of his catalog, right? In 2023, he sold part of the rights to his songs for about $50 million, guaranteeing an incredible financial stability for the rest of his life. All good, Gerson? How is Nelly doing in 2026 after telling this whole story? Today, Nelly is focused on celebrating his brand. In a strategic move, after settling all his issues, including with his friends, he announced the return of St. Lunatics for the commemorative album celebrating the 20th 25th anniversary of Country Grammar. With executive production by none other than Metro Boomin, he is currently on a tour called Where the Party At, selling out arenas and summer festivals. Focusing on the nostalgia of the 2000s, which is really popular right now, it's estimated that Nelly's net worth is around $70 million. Proving that the guy knew how to play the long game. In short, guys, Nelly's career shows us that to be a rap goat, to be a big name in music, you don't need to follow a straight path. Nelly had ups and downs, went through tough times in his personal life, faced losses and complicated grief, but he always stayed true to himself. And nowadays, he's not just the kid from St. Louis with a bandage on his face, he's the sound architect who mixed genres, and today he enjoys his status as a living legend. With his family together, he adopted his late sister's 2 children, he had 2 more from other relationships, and he just had another child with Ashanti. Besides not owing anyone anything anymore, and just as important, he doesn't owe anything to his past anymore. But that's what I think. I want to know what you guys think. Leave your comments below. Remember to download Toki to boost productivity. We're in this together. That's it for now. Your boy's signing off. Big hug from Gerson Saldanha. See you in the next video. And thanks!